Today I bring you a build that is a little different to a normal build that you would find in Destiny. Now, most builds are very focused on abilities. There's very little gunplay orientated builds, but with Heresy, Bungie reworked an exotic called Sealed Ahamkara Grasps. Now, what this does is, after getting a powered melee or finisher final blow, you are granted Nightmare Fuel, which increases handling, airborne effectiveness, and damage of your currently equipped gun. Now, the damage buff for Nightmare Fuel is 35%. To refresh this, you have to get a kill with the gun you've got equipped currently, and then you swap to the next gun, and so on and so on. So you can see on the left, I've got Nightmare Fuel. So what I'll do is I'll get a kill, swap my other gun, and it refreshes it. Now I'll get another kill. I'll swap back, and it refreshed again. Now, after getting the kill, you don't have to swap straight away. You've just got to swap before Nightmare Fuel reaches 0 and before it goes away like it just did. So as you can imagine, this gun is very focused on your guns. I originally wanted to use double harmony weapons with this, as I think it would work quite well, but after I actually tested it, I realized that it really didn't. So with harmony, after getting a kill, you've got to swap within 3 seconds. So that means you can't make the most of the Nightmare Fuel before swapping. And then something in the back of my mind just reminded me of Drang and his little friend Sturm. Now, for those that don't know, getting a kill with Drang will overflow a bonus damage round into the Sturm. As you can see at the bottom left, I've got Sturm Overcharge, and then if you get a kill, it's got massively increased damage. As you saw in the opening clip, I killed a Taken Knight in the Ultimate Prophecy dungeon in 2 shots with Sturm Overcharge and Nightmare Fuel active. Now, if you just try to use the gun normally with no Overcharge and no Nightmare Fuel, that would take 10 shots. And with just Sturm Overcharge, it would take 3 shots. Now, you might be thinking 3 shots to 2 shots isn't really that impressive, but this is a primary weapon, and you're killing a Taken Knight, that's a yellow bar, in Prophecy, in 2 shots. So since Drang is craftable, I have opted for Disruption Break, so that we can give a bit more damage to our Sturm when we break a shield and then swap over, and then Incandescent, just to be a little bit of an ad clear weapon, per se, so we haven't got anything like an area denial frame to do that for us. So we've got a very gunplay focused build. We don't want to really have too many abilities that are going to outshine that. I think the best subclass for this will be Prismatic. Now for the melee, I've gone for Threaded Spike. This is so you can actually activate the perk from a distance without needing to get too close to enemies. This will probably be a bit more beneficial in harder content, maybe like GMs, Master Dungeons, and so on. In a bit easier content, you could probably run Knife Trick or Combination Blow if you really wanted to. The Dustfield Grenade is just so we can cover champions if there are any in the activity we're in. A Dustfield Grenade will cover Overload with Slow and Unstoppable with Shatter. To cover barriers, you can either run the Artifact mod, Piercing Sidearms, or you can run Facet of Dawn to get Radiant on your melee hits, which you'll be doing a lot of the time. Something just to note quickly is that Radiant and Nightmare Fuel are both empowering buffs, so they do not stack together. Transcendence is an amplification buff, whatever that means, but it does stack with Nightmare Fuel, so that's just another reason to push you towards using Prismatic over another subclass. Our aspects will be Threaded Spectre. This is just to take some aggro away from us in harder content, but then I've gone for Stylus Executioner, just so we can go invisible. The reason I haven't gone for Ascension or Gunpowder Gamble is because they, again, lead into ability spam, and that's really not what we want. We want a heavy focus on the gunplay. Fragment-wise, there's not really any you specifically need to run. Of course, you've got Facet of Dawn just to cover some barrier champs, but the other 4 are really whatever you want. The standard really is Facet of Hope, just to get your class ability a bit quicker. You've got Facet of Balance, just to get your grenade back a little bit faster as well. Then we've got Facet of Protection, more damage resist when we're nearby enemies, and Facet of Blessing to begin regenerating health on Threaded Spike kill. For your super, I've personally gone for Golden Gun, but honestly, you can run whatever you want. The reason I've gone for Golden Gun is so we have some boss damage. Now looking at the mods, there are some I recommend. For your helm, 1 Kinetic Siphon, 1 Solar Siphon, and 1 Hands-On. Now the Siphon mods are obviously to get orbs on your Drang and Sturm kills, and then Hands-On is just to get your super back a little bit quicker on those Threaded Spike kills. Now on the actual exotic itself, 1 Heavy-Handed and 2 Impact Induction. Now the Impact Induction is just to get your grenade back a little bit faster to help with the champs more, and the Heavy-Handed is just, some orb generation. Obviously with your chest armor, run whatever you want. I will probably run 2 resist mods and then 1 reserve mod, since this is for general play. So for our leg armor, 1 recuperation, 1 innovation, and 1 installation. So every time we pick up an orb of power, we've got some healing, some extra grenade energy, and some extra class ability energy. So for the class item, I always go for a proximity ward just to get an overshield while performing a finisher, and then Reaper, so that after using our class ability, our next weapon kill will spawn an orb of power. And then finally, powerful attraction, so the next time we use our class ability, we'll gather up all those nearby orbs. Now that I've run through everything, what I'm going to do is go through a run of a GM, and then a 10 round Onslaught run, just to give you an idea of what this build is going to be like in harder endgame content, and then more level content with an enemy dense environment. So I was going to take this build into a GM, and I loaded the GM, and then I left the GM, because I realized this is really not a GM build. Instead, we're going straight into Onslaught, and we're just going to see how it goes. Okay, so we've got a kill. And I'm going to swap. And swap again. So what I'm going to try and do is just build up some Sturm overcharge shots. And then we can really get to using the exotic. Swap it again. So I've not lost it yet. I'm about to. I've still got it. I've still got it. There we go. We're swapping again. Okay, we're going to lose it now because we ran out of ads, but we'll get it again. I was expecting some to drop from there, but I guess not. He just shot my clone. I'm going to finish here because I lost my... Okay. Something just to keep in mind is that the finisher aspect is a little bit buggy. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure if that's because the enemies are dying before you actually finish the finisher. Sometimes it looks that way and other times it doesn't. So I think it's really just Bungie spaghetti code. Okay, so we've got the exotic again. I'm going to get a kill. Then we're going to swap. So we'll probably run out again. Yep, we're going to run out because it is now the intermission. So we've got 13 rounds of Sturm overcharge. So what I'm going to do is activate the perk again. And then try and take this guy down. You see, 66 and down in one shot. Swap again. We're going to activate the perk. I'm going to swap. Dead. And then I'm not going to swap until it gets to 1 second. Just to keep it going. Swap. There we go. Back up to fresh. So I'm not really going to expect to do much with the exotic in this place because there aren't really that many ads. Actually, here we will activate the perk and we'll see how fast we can kill the Revenant or Baron, whatever they're called. So I'm just gonna... Okay, I shouldn't have swapped. So I've just had a look and realized there are actually surges and threats in the playlist version of Onslaught. Now there is Solar Surge, but that shouldn't affect too much since we're only using it on red bars. And there's no kinetic surge, so we're not buffing without realizing. Okay, I'm going to swap. So we just melted those two yellow bars. So we're now onto the boss, which does have quite a few ads at times. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm just going to let them damage the boss and I will focus on ad clear. Going to get some kills. Then we're going to swap. Going to miss. Going to keep it going until it's down to 1. Going to swap. Swap. So I've lost it, but we're going to reproc it now. And the boss is dead. Okay, let's see how I did compared to these two. So I got about the same amount of kills as Todo. Rib did about 50 kills less than us. Let's just have a quick look and see what they were running. So Rib Clicker was running Spirit of Caliban and Spirit of the Liar with obviously Combination Blow. And then let's have a look and see if I can inspect Todo, which I may not be able to. Todo, there we go. So Todo is running Spirit of Osmiancy, Spirit of Osmiomancy, Spirit of Osmiancy. So Todo is running Spirit of Osmio and Spirit of Symposeps, with Bleak Watcher and Hellion, along with Chain Lightning and Storm Grenade. So I'm pretty happy with how we ended that. So we weren't falling behind at all, we were keeping up, we were quickly finishing the yellow bars with Sturm. I do not want to go into another game. And that was enough Onslaught for me. I'm going to change character. So like I said at the start of the run, I did take this into a GM, and I just wasn't feeling it. So I didn't finish the recording. GMs can be quite slow, so I just couldn't get it to work or keep the buff going as long as I really wanted it to. So what type of content should you be taking this into? Now, let me just reiterate again, this is not a meta build. This is a build for those that want to focus on gunplay. I personally would not take this into hard content. So when I say hard content, I'm talking about Grandmaster Nightfalls, Master Dungeons, and Master Raids. This could probably work in Legendary campaign, but I think that would be the hardest content I would really take this into. Otherwise, I think this is just going to be a fun build for something like Patrol, Strikes, base seasonal content, maybe expert seasonal content too, but I think that and Legendary campaigns would be the hardest content I would take it into. I think a change that could make this a little bit more viable and more enjoyable would be to make it a little like Wormgod's Caress, where instead of just a timer, it is a bar that gradually decreases. At the top of the bar, you've got the best damage buff, and at the bottom, it's considerably weaker. This would allow you to keep it going a little bit longer and not have to swap off your weapon so fast. I can't see there being an issue with this, because the longer you wait for swapping, the weaker the damage buff is going to become, so it's not like you're going to be having a 20-second 35% damage boost. So I hope you like that build. This is my first build video really. Technically I made a build for the Griffin, but that's not really a build. I do have more build videos planned. They may be scripted. I'm just going to have to see how this works out, because I'm really not good at talking unprompted. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you liked the build, and I hope you have a good day.